Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Secrets in Medical Device Sales. We are so happy you guys continue to join us and download our episodes. We are just climbing the ranks, you guys. And today we have a very special spotlight series where we are highlighting a wonderful superpower of a woman, Dr. Kelly Emerton. And she happens to be a good friend of mine as well, you guys. And she is just as beautiful on the outside as she is on the inside. And oh, by the way, she has her degree in engineering and fashion design. So we are just so excited. She's just such a cool lady.
I'm so excited that I'm going to go ahead and just start to read her bio because I want to make sure we say everything because there's so many great accolades that she holds that I want to get them all right. So welcome, Kelly Emerton, PhD. Senior Director, Product Development of Advanced and Robotic Surgical Technologies. Dr. Emerton runs product development as the team leader for the robotic and laparoscopic surgical stapling portfolio, where she oversees and leads all facets of medical device development to get Medtronic's critical programs to product launch. She currently sits on 2 boards and lends her expertise of 16 plus years in product development across 3 other Medtronic business divisions, spine, aortic, and structural heart, as well as formerly with the Cleveland Clinic Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, and 3 other spinoffs and from the Cleveland Clinic and Artivion, formerly Cryo Life. Like, ooh, everybody, I feel like I need to
baby.
Now throw a bomb. Yeah.
It was kind of
dynamite.
Means I've been doing this for a while.
No. Welcome, Kelly. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for that warm intro. And I'm really happy to be here. This is my first podcast. So I'm very excited
Welcome.
to be able to hang with you guys this evening.
Yeah. And for those of you that can't see, even though you should tune into the YouTube because you will be able to watch us, Kelly is dressed impeccably because she has such a wonderful eye for fashion. And let me just tell you guys a quick story. So real quick, Kelly and I were hanging out in New York. This was a long time ago. And Kelly's like, hey, she's like, you want to go shopping? I'm like, of course I do. Everybody that knows me knows I love to shop. And anyhow,
twist your arm.
Yeah, twist my arm. And Kelly's like, all right. She's like, I got you, babe. And I'm like, ooh. And I had no idea, by the way, you guys, that she was in a fashion. Like I had no idea. And then she just like randomly tells me, oh, by the way, I have a fashion design degree. And I'm like, what? Wait, you're an engineer. Anyhow, as she's clicking along in her Jimmy Choo heels, we walk into, I think it was Saks. And we go straight to the women's department. And she's like, look at these boots. And she's like pulling out these, I can't even curse on this show. I want to be like, super sweet boots, super high heels. And she's like, let's go upstairs. And let me tell you, Cindy, she pulled out the coolest outfits, things I would never pick out for myself. I bought them all. Okay. And she's like, girl, you look
I'm not
amazing.
surprised.
I'm like, I know. I went home, wore them out. Can I tell you, I had so many compliments on my outfit, Kelly, and I owe it all to you. And you pulled me out of my like little shell of black and gray. It was amazing.
There you go. That was pretty easy. So I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue when I was in grad school. So I would dose my mice by day and shop girl on the weekends at the beauty counter at Saks. It was really fun.
I love it. Well, let me ask you then. I mean, diving right in. By the way, her handle, you guys, for those of you that haven't looked yet, it's hell_in_heels 96.
Yeah, that's my Peloton.
I love it. But okay, so fashion design to engineering. Wait, what? Like, how did that happen? And just tell us a little bit about that because I think that's really cool.
So growing up, I grew up in Michigan, Detroit metro area. All my family was into cars. I was my dad's son for a while and just really grew up very mechanically inclined. Then my mom put me into General Motors Institute, a university, when I was in 8th grade, and I took some special classes there and really just kind of like could pull apart toasters, whatever. I just was very hands-on, very mechanical. And so, but there was always this left brain, right brain. So when I decided, I was working at Ford Motor Company at one of the last years of my undergraduate, and I was interning there, and I worked on a project where there was a woman who was a PhD who was running the entire safety crash initiation. It was this big, huge initiative for Ford around booster seats and children restraint. So I was just so enamored with her, and it opened my eyes to really look at advanced education because my family is all like very strong, blue collar, salt of the earth folks. So this was kind of out of the way and what I was going to do because my family was like, you've got a job at Ford, just go to work at Ford. And this was off the beaten path. And so, anyways, it opened my eyes to advanced degrees. And so long story short, ended up going to get my PhD in New York. Well, while I was in New York, I left brain, right brain, decided to go to FIT and get a fashion degree. So it was kind of this on the nights and weekends, up and down the subway doing both. And so it was really nice. It was kind of a release from the scientific aspect, but allowed me to explore that other side of myself. And I was terrified going in my first class because I'm like, here I am, this engineering nerd. And it ended up that there was all these different sorts of beautiful, wonderful people that I got to know that I still keep in touch with today that we ended up going through fashion school with together. So I fit in because I didn't fit in. So it
Wow.
was just a really fun piece of it.
I love that you followed your heart, but so you were literally in a PhD program, and then on the weekends you would do like a bachelor's degree of fashion?
Yeah. Kind of. I was taking like night and weekend classes.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's not a whole
Yeah, but
lot
it was
there.
like, it was so different. I was doing like partial
Right.
differential equations by day. And then I was taking
I don't
like
even know what that is.
fashion design, and I got to like put on the white gloves and do garment design and look at how garments were
God.
constructed in the Costume Institute archives. So I got to do original
This is so
Chanel,
cool.
Diane von Furstenberg, her original wrap dresses. I mean, really beautiful, cool things that were not just fashion, but how fashion influenced the country and the Industrial Revolution and how it, I mean, it was very tied in to relevancy. It wasn't just this like goofy little fashion thing. It was very much something of education and of like looking at the world from a different view.
I am
So
super girl
it was
crushing
great.
right now. This is amazing. I am super girl crushing if I didn't already have one. And I mean, you were telling us before we started recording, you guys, Kelly would go into the lab, right, in your heels and dresses. And I just like love that. I think that's so cool. You weren't
Yeah.
changing who you were super authentic. And you said you felt most comfortable in your dresses and heels. And I
Yeah,
love that.
I mean, yeah, but sometimes I would wear sweatpants. It just was like whatever I felt like. I'm
I love
just
that.
me. So I just dress how I feel appropriate and how I felt confident in myself during that day.
And
So, and honestly, nowadays, I mean, yes, I love my beautiful dresses. Most of the time, I just wear cowboy boots with a blazer.
Love it.
So that is usually how my team knows me. They're like, "Oh, cowboy boots are here." So I've got like 4 pairs, and
I love it.
I love them. They're
Love
great.
it.
I wear them with jeans and a blazer and
I
sides.
love how you just unapologetically show up the day how you feel like you're feeling.
Yeah.
And
I
and
mean,
that
appropriate. So I don't, I don't wear pajamas into work, which I do feel like that some days, but appropriate, but
Yeah.
really just not always the same. And so while I love my heels, I love a lot of other things too. And I feel most empowered lately in cowboy boots.
Hey, listen, I love me some cowboy boots. So we were talking about, and for you guys out there, you're like, okay, great. She's in fashion. She's in engineering. How does this help me? Well, engineering is a very male dominated industry, is it not? And I would assume, Kelly, that you are probably one of the few in a very high leadership position in your training and in the companies that you have worked for. And as women out there in a boys club world in medical device sales, I feel like a lot of times we struggle when we have days where we're like, yeah, I'm running on all cylinders. But there are days when we're like hit like a Mack truck. And it's real hard to pull on a list of values and things that we try and remind ourselves that we talk about on the podcast. And so I'd love for you to tell our listeners about just kind of your world and what you live in and how you absolutely dominate the engineering space where
Yeah.
you work.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if I dominate every day. Every day is not the same. Some days you're like, I really killed it today. And some days you're like, I just need wine. But I would say I'm always myself. I'm always very confident and comfortable in who I am and what I need to do. And I make sure that I know what I'm talking about. But to thrive in a male dominated, I mean, I really enjoy working with men. And it's not because I was raised working on cars with my dad and that I'm this guy's girl, which I am, but I'm a guy's girl who will wear dresses or whatever I want to show up to be that. And so I think in that thriving and really enjoying working with men, I really enjoy working with women as well. And I love mentoring and building female engineers up. But I've worked with men in the technical sector, they're always really smart, really brilliant men. So it makes it easy. And even when I was in the days where I was at Cleveland Clinic, I was working with some really brilliant surgeons and working right side by side with them. And I really respect like IQ. I would say that is one of the things that I really resonate with the most. I like to be at that level. And I like to make sure that as I'm working alongside of these really brilliant men, that we're driving and we're looking at things from different perspectives. So I value their perspective because they're wired completely differently than women. And in that, while I work with them alongside of them, I don't ever present myself like I work underneath them. Definitely not that I'm above them, but that I'm their business partner or I'm right side by side. And it really doesn't matter if they're a level up or a level down or a surgeon. We're all people and we have a common goal working together. And so it's just putting that head, heart, and hustle into it and showing up and really caring about them and what we're trying to do together and not putting up with any BS.
There you go.
Filtered version.
And I love your confidence in that. And I think that's something we have addressed with our audience before about being confident in what you do. And something you just said, I think really hits home when you mentioned that when you're working with them, you're there to partner with them. You're there to help work together and make an impact. Is that what you put in your mind when you're in there working to help with your confidence versus thinking, oh, he's so smart, maybe I'm not going to have enough right thing to say? Like, is it focusing on the job at hand that brings your confidence? Is this something that you've always had? So how do you step up in those
usually
situations?
when you are like working with someone, you're bringing something to the table that they don't have. So, but you need something from them and they need something from you. That's what I'm saying. It's very symbiotic. And so when I'm working on a project or working on a program, and believe me, I've worked with the egos. I've worked with the egos. Believe me, we've all seen them. We've all interacted with them. So not everybody's a joy to work with. And that's inside of house as well as external, running advisory panels. Egos are everywhere. But what I find is that I really just, in that, when I'm working alongside of someone, I don't get intimidated intellectually. So it's more just I have my area of expertise that I want to bring to the table to contribute towards where we're trying to go. It's not personal. And then that's usually the motivation for me to learn more from them, as well as for them to kind of take a piece away as well about what I can bring to the table. So, I mean, yeah, there's the self-confidence in yourself, but it's also realizing like, look, I have flaws. I'm not perfect and I don't care, right? Like you might see them, you might not, but here's what I am trying to do. Because generally when you're engaging with them and it's always for work, you're trying to go somewhere or you're trying to get something or you've got a commonality, a common approach. And so if you're working towards that, then you're all level set at the table. So it kind of takes away the, like, I don't know, he's really smart and whoever he is. I'm like,
I think your message drives home to know your worth, and this is something else we've talked about. Know your worth. Absolutely.
And look for their worth as well. I'm always feeling people out. I never just come in with one size fits all approach. It's tailorable like my outfits. So, I'm always very like observant. I don't always have to be the loudest person in the room at all times, but in that don't have to be the first voice, but my voice will be heard. And so
I love that.
Making sure I'm appropriately messaging so that when I stamp it and I mean it. And I didn't just say something that I'm like, oh, I got to take that back.
I love that. I think, what you were talking about, knowing your worth, and it's a symbiotic relationship. For a lot of our listeners, sometimes they'll write into us and they'll be struggling with something, and they're like, well, I'm just not there yet. It comes so easy for John down the road, but it's so hard for me. I can't connect with him. And I think what you're talking about is, at least I'm thinking is, make sure you're bringing something to the table, but you're also being observant of what their needs are. And that's the way that you start to work with one another. And you have to remind yourself that you are worthy to be there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there in the first place.
But I don't know everything. So, I mean, like if you look at the long-winded bio that you guys read, I've worked at 3 different business units. My PhD is in orthopedics, but where I've really loved and excelled over the years, everyone starts somewhere. I started in vascular. I didn't know anything. I started in structural heart. I didn't really know anything. So that intellectual intimidation was a motivation to me to learn. But I got the role because I have a skill set that's needed. So I just led with that until I could catch up. And I always told the team, like, or told the surgeons I was working or told is like, look, I don't have the knowledge base that you have yet, but I'm going to learn from you and I'm going to learn. So you keep running, I'm going to keep up and I'll catch
Love
up.
that.
At the same time, like, here's what I'm really focusing in on. Here's where I bring the value. And so lean on me for this, and then I'm going to learn from you and I help direct me on how I can catch up. Now, again, somebody who's done 12 years in a residency, probably not going to catch up. You don't need to. You don't need to. That's where you rely on their skill set.
Yeah.
So you've
Gosh.
got the hustle, you've got the skill set that's needed to drive the business. They have the patient interfacing, because I've worked with sales team as well. They're amazing, right? So I'm the inside of house, but we don't have any money if the outside of house doesn't get their work done and doesn't sell the devices. So even that's very symbiotic. And I love working with sales and sales training. So, I mean, I get what you guys are going through out there.
Well, I just love that you come across this, maybe not obstacle, but come across this bridge where you're not there yet. But then your answer is, well, I'm going to learn it. And I love that, because in medical device sales, it is like that even almost every month. It's becoming a lifelong learner. And it's okay if I don't know that. Now, how do I get there? And who do I lean on? Because it's amazing. I mean, just thinking of all that you've accomplished, if you were in one of those situations just because you didn't know something, what if, I mean, just think about this. What if you chose not to learn it? Or what if you just accepted the fact that you haven't been taught that yet and you haven't experienced it? Would you have been able to do all the great things that you've done?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I love to be a student, but obviously you can't get anything further than a PhD. So I had to go to work. No, I'm just kidding. But I think in that, like, it's okay to not know everything, but you've got to put the hustle in. So I don't mean to sound like, oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. I just go, I put the work in. I was
Absolutely.
in extra cases to learn. I was asking the questions. I was reading textbooks, medical textbooks, to catch up and make sure I had my terminology. So I put the work in to catch up. I just said, don't wait on me. I'll catch up to you. But I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to need to learn. And it didn't need just be from that one person. But I think I'd never be intimidated by intellectual capacity, because there's so many well-rounded, like, different facets that have to contribute in order to have a patient safely get implanted with a medical technology. So there's a skill set that is the reason why we have sales in the field. And they're generally, by the end of it, so knowledgeable. And also think of this, you know everything, you're probably bored, and it's time for you to go to your next gig.
Yeah.
You've got to constantly be learning to be
Yeah.
challenged for yourself, so
It's
that
such a
you
great
feel
point.
like you're adding value. When you stop feeling like you're learning anything, then it's like time to move on, time to move up, time to do something else.
Yeah. One of the great qualities of being a leader is being curious. And I think that's what you're talking about, is curiosity or
Yeah.
hunger for
Yeah.
wanting to learn more, wanting to get better, wanting to always up your game. We talk about
Wanting
this
to
a
look at
lot.
things from a different angle, which is why I
Yes.
appreciate working with men, because they look at things completely different.
Yeah. And all you're doing is flipping the script just a little bit. And man, it is
Just
paying
a
off
little
in
bit.
dividends.
Yeah.
It's paying
Yeah.
off in dividends. So a little hard of a question here. So, I mean, we can talk about all the amazing things that you've done all day long, but everybody likes to hear as well when you've hit some hurdles, when you've run up
Yeah.
against some times when you're like, oof, that was a tough time.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us about a time that you ran into a hurdle and how you got through that, Kelly, because I think a lot of our listeners out there are struggling with things, and that's why they're tuning into us, because they want to hear not only are they not alone, but how are they going to manage getting through some tough times?
Yeah. So as much as I am confident and I know my way, there's lots of times that I have not known my way. It's been a while now. It was not in the for-profit sector, but I was running 3 companies and trying to get fundraising off the ground, trying to get these companies out the door. I had gotten initial investment into a couple of these companies, seed rounds, Series A rounds, that will fuel the product development that I was trying to do to get this from a paper napkin into a launch at some point. But again, as I was doing this, we had an investor that felt like, because he had given money into this company, that he really owned me, or owned my ability to move forward, and was very much micromanaging. And I want to say bullying, and I don't use that word lightly. And I kept thinking to myself, this can't be it, because I'm not the type of person that gets bullied. But it happens, and it happens to everybody, and it happens in discrete and different angles from what you typically would grow up on the playground with. And so in that, I was trying to figure out, what is his motivation for coming into my office when the door was closed and just coming in, cornering me in the break room. I mean, the laundry list was a mile long. And I found that it was affecting my ability to want to go to work. And I'm really passionate about what I do. I was just dreading going to work. It was making me crawl inside of myself and just be very more introverted. I knew I was changing and I knew I needed help. And I knew that just confronting him was not going to be the answer because I had tried that initial approach, said, I felt really uncomfortable in this. Can you take it a step back? What is the pain point? How do we, all the typical avenues you typically do when someone doesn't maybe realize that they're being bullyish, so to speak. And of course that didn't work because you've got this, some people just are who they are. And so I then went external, went to try and get help. So from HR partner, from my boss, again, the typical venues, really wasn't getting where I needed to be and wasn't getting the support that I needed. And I was continuing to feel like spiraling down. And it was like, you either quit or you stand up. And so it's one of these, you get knocked down twice, you stand up 3 times. And I would not quit because I knew where I was trying to go was positive, and I wasn't going to let somebody who was inferior in their knowledge and their micromanagement abilities to get me down. And so it was a long road and really stressful road. I ended up consulting with a couple of mentors that I have that are very personal to me outside of the business, not someone directly where I was working, and really got some feedback from them. One of my best wellness tools is a psychologist. I love her. She's like yoga to me. She's like shopping at Saks to me. And she's one of the best wellness tools. And I've worked through so much in my life with her. And so I had just started a relationship with her and was talking to her about this. And I think one of the best things she gave me was that you mentally, in order for you to move forward, you have to put a hazmat suit on, a mental hazmat suit. You have to figure out where your boundaries are and how you're not going to let this person cross them. And once I kind of really thought about that, then I kind of knew how to fight back a little bit more. And again, not putting myself in situations. So I changed how I didn't go to the break room anymore. I changed my patterns. I locked my door. I got the things that I needed. And when I was confronted with him, I was very verbal about it. And I did not give up. I kept going up because I was not getting what I needed. And somebody at some point, when you use that word, it's significant. And so I ended up getting through somewhere else. And the person is no longer with the company. I think he's crawling around at the bottom somewhere else. Thank God.
Wow.
But
wow.
I say that because if it's helpful to somebody else that's in a weird or dissimilar yet similar situation, I don't know there's nothing vulnerable about me, but there's something vulnerable in all of us. And if somebody's hitting those angles, do not give up. Do just sit back. How do you protect your boundaries? And then how do you change the game to fight? I mean, you think of like Game of Thrones, right? Like they didn't win by just going forward. They won by being strategic. So get strategic with yourself because you're worth it and get yourself out of it.
Kelly, that is such profound advice. And I thank you for sharing that story as whether somebody may be going through something maybe very similar, but if not, maybe in parts and pieces where I think that for you to be able to share, to never give up. And also something else you said that I really took from that I think is excellent advice for anybody listening is never be afraid to ask for help, to find that mentor, to find another person, to know your worth and know this is not okay. And now this is something that I bring value to this company. I love this company. I want to stay here. Now, how do we make it all work? And I really, really applaud you in the trajectory that you did to find a way to resolve the solution. And clearly it wasn't easy on you at the time.
It was a slog, but I think resiliency is everything. And then you can help somebody else once you get yourself out of it. It's that pay it forward. And then you walk a little taller in your cowboy boots because you're thriving and they're not. Like you're onward and upward.
100%. Yeah, that's such a thank you again.
But it happens to everybody. I mean, I was asking you guys, how can I help? I work with the inside of the house, but how can I help with someone going through something similar on this podcast? You're like, I'm here. You're not alone. I'm here. And you can move on and move forward. Because I have to think about all this. I'm raising 3 girls and I have to think about this. What are the messages for my daughter? when they're dealing with their own issues now, which are completely different than what we grew up with. We didn't have social media.
Yeah.
But some of them are the same, and some of them are completely extrapolate across to what we deal with in industry and in work and in our roles as we're trying to corporate climb to where we're trying to be.
Yes, absolutely. I think in sales, I mean, that exact thing can absolutely happen or something very similar. And I, like you said, I mean, I really appreciate you sharing your story because you're not alone out there. And to reach out for help can be scary. You're letting your vulnerability now come out, but you're also being strong and resilient because you are asking for help. And
Yeah.
I don't know why sometimes we think as women we shouldn't ask for help. But it's so important that we do because I feel like that's empowering in and of itself. I mean, I know I've faced a number of things, and until I asked for help, I didn't really realize that I would have actually had an army behind me from the beginning. And I think sometimes we allow ourselves to go so far away than if we had just reached out to ask for help a little sooner, we may have not had to go through so much. And I'm sorry that you went through what you did, but I think your story will really resonate with a lot of our listeners in a lot of different ways. And so I just appreciate you sharing that.
And I think one more add is that you mentioned coming onto this podcast, which, yes, it is geared more towards sales. However, engineering and research and development is the engine behind any medical device company. Engineering, clinical side, research. So we in sales also can communicate with engineers. We can communicate to in-house. So maybe it's a great time to say, hey, look, your world's different than mine, but you're a woman, I'm a woman, or you're a man and I'm a man. And maybe it's you may find mentors within your own company in different divisions that can help you in many different ways. So engineering is a very, very, very important part of any job in medical device. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I mean, but there's mentors. There's also, and I have a collection of women that are in the medical device sector that are all PhDs. There's like 5 of us. And we're all kind of at that director, senior director, VP level. And I consult with them all the time on things. So I have my core posse of,
I love it.
Love that.
and I'm sure every person here, sales is a lone wolf sport. It's very similar to what I'm doing it is a lone wolf leadership role that I have to do to deliver these programs with no BS to the business at launch, on time, on metric, and without the wheels coming off in duct tape. So in order to do that, you need people. You need people to support you along the way. So yes, I have my external and internal mentors, a collection of people I really respect very much that won't sugarcoat and gives me the right advice. I have a collection of women, and then I have my psychologist. So I mean, like, it comes from different areas. And I have my husband. My husband's one of the most brilliant men I know. And I consult, and he's smart in ways that I'm not smart. I would not move forward without him. And so, you find your people. You find your people that will help carry you through and help you make those better decisions.
Yes. That's all we want to do. That's what we're doing here, Kelly.
Drop the mic right there.
I love it.
It's like,
I love
Find
it.
your people.
And that's the Girls of Grit.
It is absolutely.
All right. So before we close up, we love asking these questions. Tell us some of your favorite books or maybe quotes or something, just a mantra that you live by. I mean, you've already dropped a number of pearls of wisdom, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I mean, so today is MLK Day, and one of my most favorite books is his autobiography. I've read it several times. His dissertation alone is really phenomenal on how he studied Gandhi. But I read a collection of fiction and nonfiction. I also love the work books where, like, business storytelling, the first 90 days, anytime I'm in a new position, I always go back to the first 90 days. Another book I really love is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. She is friends with Sheryl Sandberg. She's a woman high up in the tech sector, not med, but the tech sector, who really found her voice and how she did it with empathy. And I think that's probably one of the strongest books right now that I've really been reading and resonating with. So there's a collection of books that I generally do. So I don't really have a quote other than my husband is a lacrosse player in college and then professional. And he had this thing on his jersey that says head, heart, hustle. And I thought it was so great. Obviously, the context is sports, but the analogy works. And I'm like, that is how I carry myself in the passion that I have for work. I 100% have my head in the game. I am very dedicated. I love what I do. I love the fact that we can bring technologies to patients and to our surgeons that can really change lives, and to our field team. So new launches are a win for everybody. And then hustle. I am the first person to roll up my sleeves. I'm the first person to dive in, and I'm the first person to solution find. So I think head, heart, hustle, which is super cheesy, but I love it. And it
That
really
is
carries
not
me
cheesy.
through.
I love it. I think
I
it's
love
great.
It's
it.
not like on the top of his, like, his signed poster. And I'm, well, that's so good. That's so good. So anyways,
Head, heart, hustle. Well, I think that does say it all. And to have Kelly Emerton with us today, engineer, fashion guru,
mom of
and
twins, mother of
Mom of
dragons.
twins.
She's
Well, then
got
we got to
twins
stop for
and
a
another
second.
one.
So all of
I
this
have
that
three
you
little
have on your
girls. I have three little girls and I have twins. So all of that situation that I was talking to you about, I was all while I was going through fertility treatments. We were struggling. We couldn't get pregnant after my daughter, just being very candid. None of that was good for the headspace. And so I say that in the context of I won because I ended up getting to another role further on, and we ended up getting our daughters, which we ended up winning the fertility battle because I was able to move past that and go where I wanted to go and stop letting this BS bully get to me. And
You
so
never give
again,
up.
I will not give up. Knock me down 3 times, I will stand up 4 and I will stand up stronger. And at the end of this, we ended up getting our beautiful daughter. So now I'm a mother of twins, 3-year-old twins, and my 7-year-old daughter. So I am like
That is
committed to teaching
amazing.
them glass ceilings and figuring out what motivates them and how to be the best mama to them. That's my biggest job.
It is. They're
My
beautiful,
biggest
by the
job.
way.
Well,
Yeah.
they are lucky girls to have you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll teach them all your lessons of lifelong learning and never giving up and knowing your worth and being authentically who you are. And something tells me, even at the young age of 3 and 7, that they're probably already becoming confident. And I just love that if all of us women can remember what it's like when we're girls at that age, like 3, you have no biases. You just love everybody. You're just so innocent that the world is so, your eyes get so
World
big
is
to
your oyster.
discover.
And they're all
Yes.
very different. And I love that. And I have to think of, so talk about being on your feet. I have to talk about 3 different ways to raise 3 different girls because the way that I raised the first one ain't the same way I'm going to have to raise the second one.
You got sneakers, heels, and cowboy boots. Hey,
All 3.
That's
I got all
right.
3 represented at my house right now.
That's
So,
right.
but I really thank you guys for the opportunity and just, you're not alone. And I don't know how, if you guys give out information, but I'm always here.
Yeah.
If somebody needs me, I'm
Yes.
here. We got you. We got each other. And I'm happy to be a resource to somebody.
and how can somebody find you if they want to reach out?
Elisa's got my contact.
She
Lisa
is
got
on
my
LinkedIn.
burner phone.
LinkedIn.
She's
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Lisa's got, yeah.
We
Lisa's
can
got
drop
my-
it in the show notes, your LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you. This has been awesome,
you.
enlightening. You're so inspiring. I mean, I'm like, I would like to be like you one day.
Guys, just be yourself. You're amazing just the way you are. But
Love
yeah,
it.
thank you so much. And happy to be on here. This was really fun. My first
You-
podcast.
You bring
Yay!
great energy. Well, hopefully
rocked
there's
it.
more. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye.